right, here we are.
Okay, now I'm not in full screen again. Okay, that's okay. We press a couple buttons. Okay, Bill, how you doing?
I'm good, Andrea. How are you?
I'm good. So my new CD with you on it and Harvey and Jason um, was just released on May 20th. So I'm really excited about that. And things seem to be moving along. So how do you feel about that?
Oh, I feel great about it. I love this band. I love the way we interact. I love the way you and I write music together. There's a real openness. There's a real communication between everybody. Uh, like I said, I love playing with this band. So
Well,
we're very very free, yet harmonically really interesting. So it's pretty much got everything I'm looking for.
cool. Well, I'm very honored to play with you and with Jason and Harvey. And somebody asked me recently what my goal was, what my dream goal was, and I said, well, I don't know. I feel like I kind of have it. I'm in a band. I'm playing original music. I'm playing with great guys. I don't. There's no, as a woman in this field, you can have challenges, but there's no challenges, with you guys. It's just there's a lot of respect. There's a lot of mutual musicianship going on, and it's like the best situation.
Well,
It's just
hopefully I mean, I think there when you say there's no challenges, I think they're musical challenges, but you're talking about the other challenges that sometimes maybe get in the way of the music, I think.
you
And
make music business.
well, we try not to dwell on that too much sometimes when it lags behind a little bit, but the music is the important thing, and in spite of whatever we go through in the business, I think it's important for all of us to always tell ourselves that, um, because that keeps you going. The music will keep you going. Of course, you do need a little help from the business every now and then to eat, but you know, you do the music in a way is very powerful, and certainly in this band it is. And
Yeah.
everyone has a strong voice, and we all meld together in a beautiful way.
Well, I think one of the reasons that happens is because to me, there's no ego. In a lot of bands, people are like, oh, you got, I want to be the star. No, I want to be the star. No, in this band, it's like, no, we're just playing music.
Yeah, I mean that's true. Uh, However, it is your band. You did bring us all together, which is a beautiful thing. And we co-write the music, but you steer us in a certain direction melodically. So you do have a little bit more, I think, to do with the direction of it. But once we bring the music in to Harvey and Jason, then I think you're absolutely right. I mean, as a leader, you give everybody a lot of freedom to do what they do best, and that's probably the best kind of leader. I mean, you're following in the footsteps of Miles, you know?
Oh,
I mean,
Miles. Wow.
there
What a,
you go. Well, I mean, come on. Why were those bands so great? One of the reasons is because Miles let Wayne write and let Herbie play the way he played, let Tony Williams and or George Coleman or Billy Joe or whoever he had in bands at certain points. He let them do their thing, you know, and the music was much better for that.
yeah. Well, I appreciate you saying that. So we've got a list of questions here, which we can go through if you want. How you got into jazz? Who was the first jazz musician you remember hearing? So how
Well,
I got it?
why don't you answer it first? Yeah.
Okay, so Denise Bevers, um, when I was 15 years old, was studying with Richard Davis. She was studying bass, and she turned me on to Eric Dolphy, Out to Lunch. And as soon as I heard that, I was like, that's what I want to do. Um, and so that although I do have to say, all those merry melodies, like cartoons, I was listening to jazz then.
Sure.
Um, and then the first jazz musician I remember hearing, well, yeah, Eric Dolphy. What is the first album you purchased with your own money? What does that mean? I would play purchase it with other people's money? I don't know. I don't know what that means, but I don't remember. Um, but I do have to say that Jimmy Heath was really, really influential with me in terms of playing music. Because I used to go up to Jazzmobile when I was like 16, 17 every Saturday and just be in his flute class. And he was very, very supportive and nurturing. And, he said, look, if you go out there and they're not doing the right thing, just come back into my class. So, are there any comments? I only see a half of me, and I'm not going to go out and come back in again.
No, you're good. I see all of you anyway.
Oh,
Yeah, that's great. I mean, those early experiences are really important. Somebody like Jimmy Heath, who I knew, but I think I did one recording with him. Didn't really know him that well, but he seemed like a real gentleman, a beautiful guy. Um, you know, I grew up like in a normal, well, in a very musical family, but then I got caught up in the rock and roll world. Make a long story short, I got into Frank Zappa. Frank
oh,
Zappa. Frank
remember,
Zappa. Yeah, Zappa was the great.
she's only 13 and she knows how to nasty.
Well, yeah, yeah, right. Okay, you can go ahead, but music. He had some weird messages, but he also had some great music.
Oh, yeah.
And George Duke and Jean-Luc Ponty were playing with him, and that was sort of a bridge for me to investigate other things. And then some friends of mine played. I don't know which Miles record it was. Might have been Miles Smiles, and then Coltrane's "A Love Supreme" for me. And I heard "A Love Supreme" too much. I couldn't process it. Came back 6 months later. It totally spoke to me. I was ready for it, and I kind of knew that was the direction I wanted to go in. And that so those Miles and Train really changed my life in the very beginning, and then course, I went back and investigated the whole history of jazz. But my uncle was sort of a somewhat of a jazz pianist too, who I studied with as a kid. So my mother sang standards. So there was a lot of my grandfather was into Dixieland. So there's a lot of jazz stuff going on in the family too. So that helped also.
Wow, that's really great. Yeah, I think I think when you hear jazz, I mean, if somebody like hears rock and roll and they hear jazz, and I mean like basic rock and roll, and then they hear jazz, and if the jazz attracts them, to me, it's like this different level of melodies and harmonies, and rhythm that's attracting you, because rock and roll is rock and roll and it's very basic and it's very strong and it's very rooted and grounded. But jazz is a different vibe, to me anyway. What do you think?
Well, yeah. I often say the reason I love jazz because I was also into write. Well, I was always into writing music and writing. I was thinking about writing, and I was writing sort of modern classical music. But when I really got into the jazz thing, it was a total combination of sophistication of melody and harmony with the with the pulse though, with the rhythms that really turned me on. So it had everything. It had the earth, it had the foundation, it had the groove, as well as everything you're talking about with the melodies and harmonies being much more rich and interesting. So I was sold.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Let's see, at your current project. So, we talked about evolution, and this record, we started we recorded 4 tunes in January 2020, which was before the pandemic. I was trying to get a grant. I don't remember which one. It might have been New Music or Chamber of Music America. And one of the songs on the record is called Child of the Earth. And it's a poem that I wrote. And the poet laureate of Jersey City was supposed to do the spoken word, but he didn't show up to the rehearsal. So I remember you saying, "You do it." And I was like, "I don't know how to do that." And you said, "Well, just do it anyway. You know how to talk, so just do it."
Oh, yeah, 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 and you did a great job. I mean, you wrote it. Yeah, that's how some of the greatest stuff happens. Somebody doesn't show up, you jump in, and there you go. And you find out you can do something. So I think it was great.
Thanks. Well, so the name of that tune is Child of the Earth, and the whole theme of that song or the poem was about taking care of the children on the planet. So I thought, after the fact, and then during the pandemic, I thought it was kind of, interesting that I wrote something like that because then look what happened, with the pandemic. Um, so that's one of the songs. And, my original intention was to focus on different populations of children on the planet who really needed to have a spotlight on them so we could kind of take care of them better. So there's a Native American song, and then there's a Child of the Earth, and then there's the Hut song, which is the Baka forest people. And then there's a song that's a Shabbat song. So it's focusing on Israel and the Mideast. And then the pandemic happened and nobody knew what was going on. And we went back into the studio in February of 2021, and the whole direction of the record changed because of the pandemic. So all the songs that I wrote, those songs that we wrote together were about the pandemic, really. Um,
Right.
so when it was time to figure out the name of the record, it was like I didn't know what to write. So that's how I was like, well, it evolved. And then I thought, well, evolution. So that's how it became Evolution.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you're saying it's almost like two projects, but really, I think it really holds together as one. Basically, one thing because of the sound of the band, and the other thing is music is, yeah, I guess it's the sound of the band, and we're all creating it together. So anything we create together, I think is going to have a certain kind of sound that's going to pull it all together. And I also like the fact that there is music from other cultures that you brought into this thing and that we worked on, because God knows the world needs to come together, and I think that's part of what this record, in its own small way or maybe big way, we'll see what happens,
Yeah.
can help do, help bring the world together, bring all the cultures together. I'm always a cross-cultural kind of guy. I like to mix things, and I know you do too.
Yeah. And speaking of that, you have a new record that just came out too, right? What's the name of your new
I
record?
do. I do. The record is it's called "A Change Is Gonna Come." I did a version of Sam Cooke's great tune from the '60s, "A Change Is Gonna Come," and I hope changes are coming.
It
I
has been
sort of,
coming.
I
Yeah.
mean, given what we've witnessed here together the last week or so, it's been a rough week. In fact, I'm playing at Birdland tomorrow night, and I have a tune on the record called "Enough Is Enough," and I'm going to start the show with that. I'm going to start the show with that because what we've seen, I think, most of America and most of the world feels enough is enough. I don't know if you saw Steve Kerr last night, what he said before an NBA playoff game, but I agree with him. It's time something has to be done.
Something has to,
Something has to be done.
I put a post up on Facebook today, and what I basically said is, yes, we have to get rid of guns, but it's really the mindset behind it that has to be addressed. We just need to move into more love. We have to
Right.
move into more unity as a planet, you know.
I totally agree. And when I felt like the cover I did of Sam Cooke doing "A Change Is Gonna Come." I mean, it's an optimistic song that hopes. It's a song of hope for the world on on many levels, racial, economic. That people can live better lives together. And listen, I'm a musician, but if I can use my music to for the good of humanity or bring positive messages to the world, that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
But also when I have a tune like "Enough Is Enough," that's also expressing a certain amount of frustration with how things are going, and I think that needs to be expressed too.
Yeah, I mean, we have been put on the planet to play music. And so our job is to play music and, as Louis Armstrong said, we have to play for the audience. And my intention these days is to put out as much healing, as much love to the people who are in the audience as possible. That's my goal, you know.
Yeah, well,
And I'd love to have so many more opportunities to do that.
we all would, and I I want to make an honest statement, whether I'm and I do agree with you. One of the CDs I did a recording of John Lennon's "Imagine." And I think again, it's basically imagine the world in a way that you've never imagined it before. But the Beatles were about love. They were love, peace. It sounds mundane, but these are things that need to be said again and again and again, because I do believe, I think as you do, that's the key to the future, to find that love, to find the peace that seems to be missing right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, let's see, any advice you want to give to younger musicians to keep them encouraged? Well, get a day job. Oh no, did I say that?
Hey, listen, there's no crime in that. I had a day job when I first came to New York to try to make my oh boy. Well, I guess those are my dogs in the background.
That's okay.
But I had a day job in the beginning. There's nothing wrong with that. Before I could support myself playing music, you do what you have to do. It's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, honestly, and being a little bit more serious, um, I think it's really important to find your voice. It's very easy to play 1,000 notes, but if you don't, if you play something and somebody is walking in and they can be able to say, that sounds like Bill O'Connell, that sounds like Andrea, that means that you've done the inner work of connecting the emotions to your playing, which is one of the things that Coltrane always said. I'm just trying to play as much emotion as possible with my music. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I agree with a lot of that. I always come back to the word honesty. I want to make an honest expression of however I'm feeling. But the fact I don't think it's a terrible thing to think about your own voice. To think about, I think it will evolve if you play enough. I mean, if you just do it, your personality should come out. But there's also some thought behind it, and there's some inner work to be done. And I think that's a good thing, because you want to think about, why is somebody going to listen to you? Why should somebody want to hear me play as opposed to anyone else? I think that's important. to try to maybe push the envelope here and there, or to bring in other influences to the music that might make your music a little more unique. These are all good things to think about.
Yeah, and I think it's really what bandmates are. Oh, oh, you see, now Gail is doing her homework.
Right, you have a question, Andrea. You have a question.
Oh, it's from Charles Ramat Woods. What bandmates? Okay, so when I first moved to Baltimore, my agent Michael Cherigo got me a gig, and he said, "I think these guys are going to be your bandmates," and he was right. So I've got Steve Rudolph on the piano, Frank Russo on the drums, and Amy Shook on the bass, and they're great. So I'm really excited about that. Also, a shout out to Scott Thompson, who's been handling my promotion. So if any reviewers are out there and DJs, if you haven't received my CD yet, please reach out to Scott Thompson. So yeah, those are the guys. They're great musicians. I'm very happy to be playing with them this Saturday, and then there's always something else going on. I'm going up to the city to play at Grant's Tomb with Santi Dobriano and the Bembe Orchestra, which is like a 9 or 10 piece band, on June 1st. And then we're playing the Jersey City Jazz Festival on June 4th. So all this stuff is on my website, which is andreabrachfeld.com. Or if you can't remember how to, oh, there it is. Or it's also andreaflute.com. And again, Bill, you're playing at Birdland tomorrow night, right?
Birdland tomorrow night. Yeah, everybody fly in from wherever you are. Come on, come
And
on down. 8:30 tomorrow night. I'll have Robbie Amin on drums, Lincoln Goings on bass. My buddies from when I used to play with Dave Valentine, the late great flute player, and Craig Handy on saxophone. So Andrea does join us on occasion, but this time we're just doing a quartet.
is that going to be live streamed?
I don't know. I don't. Do they usually live stream there? I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know. We're at the Birdland Theater. Whatever they usually do, I'm sure they're going to do tomorrow night.
Yeah, that's going to be great.
Yeah.
And I mean, just talking about the music business in general, I think it's really important to honor the elders. And all of a sudden, here we are. Now we're the elders.
Yeah.
I mean, there's guys and women who are much older than us who are still at it. Um, but I do this thing called Flute Stories on Mondays on Instagram, and I had Nestor Torres on,
Hmm.
and I was doing it so we could talk about what he's doing, and he kept changing the attention to me, which was interesting. And he said, you have to remember, you were the first woman to play charanga music, Latin music in the United States. And I was like, yeah, but that's not what the purpose was. The purpose was to just play music, you know.
Well,
And
I think you and I have that in common. We were both caught up in the Latin scene that was going on in the '70s in New York, because I certainly got there with playing with Dave Valentine, but not just him, with Mongo Santa Maria, with uh, you know, oh God, Jerry Gonzalez, Fort Apache, Ben, and on, all those guys. And we just got caught up in it, and we dug it. You dug the groove, I dug the groove, and it changed our lives really. And you probably, I mean, what Nestor said is true.
yeah,
I was unusual as being the gringo piano player there playing one tunos, but I dug the music and I came at it from a place of humility and a place of wanting to learn. And the cats embraced me because they heard my jazz chops and they said, "Wow, that's great!" Every time I'd solo, and that would open their ears up, and they put up with me while I learned how to play Latin music.
yeah. The Latin community has always been very welcoming to me. I was very happy that they did that. And boy, was there a lot of work. I remember the first time that I met you, I think was in Venezuela. Is that true?
It's possible with Angel Canales
With
or with
Canales. And I remember I heard that this band was going to be at this hotel. And so I went, I was like, I was jonesing for like New York vibe and New York, musicians. So I went to the hotel and the first thing everybody said was, "We're so hungry." So I don't know if you remember, but I went out to an areperia and I got
yeah, yeah.
all these arepas.
I wrote a tune for Mongo called Arepas. Maybe that's why, but he never recorded it, but we used to play it all the time. But anyway, I do. Yeah, I have some vague recollection of that. I mean, I remember being there, and yeah, I'm sure we did meet for the first time down there.
Yeah, that was the early 80s.
Yeah.
So,
So
are there any other like we didn't really answer, about young musicians. I just think that you have to stay humble. You have to practice a lot. You have to be observant. Observant of the protocol, and you know, I guess the most important thing is not to get into that anxiety. The anxiety of when am I going to have my next gig? Because that'll make you crazy.
I think it'll make you crazy anytime. Excuse me. Anytime you think about the business too much. As a young musician, you have to come at it. Uh, you're into it because of the music, and basically because you can't do anything else. Because music is the only thing that makes sense to you. I know that's how it was with me. I had to do music. Music chose me.
Right.
Uh, if there had been an easier path, maybe I would have taken it. I don't know. Uh, it doesn't mean I can't. I might have been able to do other things. So I think that's the kind of dedication you need in the beginning, and then as you go, you'll see if you can keep that dedication going, or if life takes you in other directions. But that's if you aspire to play music at a very high level, I think that's the kind of dedication you need, and try to get into it and try to remain positive. Don't sugarcoat it, but get into it, and give it your best shot and aim high.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, staying humble and just knowing that there's always so much more to learn. It's just a never ending process of learning how to play this music.
Well,
It's
that's
just,
a beautiful thing about music in general, and I've always recognized that. There's no end to this. There's no end to it. I hope there's even in the afterlife, or whatever awaits us in the next phase. I hope there's no end to this discovery. There's always another lick to be discovered. There's always another tune to be written, and that's one of the things that makes me get up in the morning. Is I wanna find that. You
yeah,
know,
and we're very lucky that we hear that music, you know. Um,
yeah.
okay, well, we're nearing the end here. I'd like to give the utmost thanks to Gail Boyd for doing this,
Absolutely.
creating this wonderful platform for musicians to just chat, and Scott Thompson for hooking us up. And anything else you want to add, Mr. O'Connell?
Well, I'll be, just plug it again. Birdland tomorrow night. Come on down. Anyone in New York or the New York area, uh, playing at 8:30. Uh, it's going to be a fun night.
Oh yeah, and the quartet, we will be playing at the Hampton Jazz Festival on July 13th out in Bridgehampton, New York, at the library. And Bill, you're the artistic director of that.
I am the artistic director of the Hamptons Jazz Fest in New York. If you Google Hamptons Jazz Fest New York, you'll see a whole list of events that are happening throughout the summer. Most of them are free, and there are a lot of great things there. I'll be playing with a few different bands as well as a few of my projects, but there are many other great musicians involved. So please go to our website of the Hamptons Jazz Fest and check it out. So it'll be a great
Okay.
summer.
So let's end this by saying if you're listening to this now or if you're listening to this later, please support live music. That's how we stay alive.
One other thing I'd like to just say, and check out Andrea's new record, Evolution. It's a great record, great musicians, some beautiful playing. Very proud of the project.
Thank you. And it is, I'm very happy with Bandcamp. If you're a musician and you haven't discovered Bandcamp, they are wonderful. They're very, very musician friendly. So you can get Evolution on Bandcamp. You can just download one tune or two tunes or the whole record. It's up to you. And again, thank you, Bill, for coming on and taking your time to do this. Thank you,
Thank you,
Gail.
Andrea.
Thank you, Scott. And
All right.
I see some of you guys someplace. If you see me, come on up and say hi. And let's
See you on the road.
be on the road. Let's have a good time.
Okay.